Hey, everybody out there in podcast land, welcome to the hell that right now is Sports Frenzy 2.0. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane, flying solo this week. We are having so many technical issues. We have been trying for days, literally, to put something together for you guys. The Conquistador, Dave Height, and I tried to do a Zoom version of this week's episode. It did not work out. I'm struggling to get something together for you. It's late. I know it is February the 18th, 2022. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion. This was our 50th episode, and it was not supposed to go like this. So we're doing a shorter episode this week with shorter segments. That seems to be the only way we can push this through. I found a workaround, but it's a pain in the butt. It takes time. So you're going to have to bear with just me this week and bear with the fact that you're not going to get everything you would normally get from Sports Frenzy 2.0, but we're going to do the best we can for you here. So, of course, this segment will be the NFL. Super Bowl 56 is over. The Rams won 23-20. As I predicted, the difference was the Rams' defensive line overwhelming the Bengals' offensive line in the second half. 7 sacks. Aaron Donald made his presence known again, just like 2 weeks ago. At the end of the game, he was the deciding factor. But again, Cooper Kupp also made his presence known. I still say he was the overall MVP of the NFL season, not Aaron Rodgers. So again, there's a lot I would like to talk about when it comes to this past Sunday's game. Limited on time again because of technical issues. And of course, you've heard everybody and their brother and their mother and their sister dissect the game. So I will give you a brief rundown, a brief recap of what I thought. And of course, you have to talk about the officiating, the non-calls that helped the Bengals out, the calls that helped out the Rams, especially that awful holding call over the middle as the Rams were going in trying to score what did eventually turn out to be the game-winning touchdown. Of course, the non-calls I'm referring to early in the third quarter, T. Higgins grabbing Jalen Ramsey's face mask, got open on a long touchdown pass from Joe Burrow. No flag there. There was another play, Matthew Stafford trying to hit Van Jefferson. Eli Apple was blatantly, obviously holding down one of Van Jefferson's arms so he couldn't make the catch. No call. The officials kept their flags pretty much in their pockets for 3.5 quarters. And then as the Rams were trying to go ahead at the end of the game, then they decided to get involved. Like I said, that first call was the worst. That was not a hold. That was great coverage. Then you've got a pass interference call that was legit. Then you had the offsetting offensive holding, unnecessary roughness calls, the blow to Cooper Kupp in the end zone. A lot of people speculating why wasn't Cooper Kupp put into concussion protocol. He seemed like he was okay. I know they're trying to protect the players with the CTE issues and all that, but I don't think Cooper Kupp was any worse for wear. At some point, you got to let these guys play. You might think that sounds callous, but they know what they're getting into. I had a problem with the way Cooper Kupp did play at the end of the first half, though. The Rams were trying to set up a field goal to put some more points on the board, keep momentum in their favor. Cooper Kupp stayed in bounds at the end. He could have saved the Rams their last time out, gone out of bounds, let Matthew Stafford have the middle of the field to work with to set up a gay field goal. Instead, Stafford, they have to burn their last time out because Kupp stays in bounds. Stafford underthrows another ball, gets picked off in the end zone. In the end, it worked out for the Rams. But those are the type of things I look at when I'm watching a football game. But of course, that's one of the very, very few mistakes this year Cooper Kupp has made. Both quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford, had scary moments. Joe Burrow ended up with a knee sprain, but it looks like he'll be good to go for the start of the 2022 season. Looks like Matthew Stafford is no worse for wear because of his ankle getting rolled up on. Of course, Stafford was more than in good enough shape to participate in the victory parade, where a photographer fell and fractured her spine falling off the stage. Of course, Stafford's wife went to this woman's aid, and Matt was 3 sheets to the wind, so he was kind of indifferent. So because of that, because of the world we live in, cameras everywhere, phones everywhere, everybody caught this on video, posted it, showing the callous, indifferent Matthew Stafford. So now he and the Rams are going to pay for this woman's medical care as well as replacing any broken equipment. Of course, there's other stuff going on in the Super Bowl outside of football. First off, the coverage from NBC was awful. I don't like NBC's NFL coverage. Now Al Michaels is retiring, probably headed to Amazon. Michelle Tafoya retiring from the sideline reporter job, heading into politics. We'll have more on that when we get to the dumbass segment at the end of the show. And it's not about Michelle Tafoya. But I don't like the nepotism. I don't like Chris Sims. I don't like Zach Collinsworth. Tony Dungy bores me to death. He's a hypocrite. I've said it over and over again over the years. So has Dave. Drew Brees has got a lot to learn before he gets anywhere close to former players like Troy Aikman or even Tony Romo. God help me, I was actually pining for Tony Romo. And I don't like him. Yeah, Chris Sims really bothers me, though. I've got a special kind of hate for him. I used to watch him for a time before it went to Peacock, where he was doing the morning football show on NBC Sports Network with that 50-something-year-old snowflake, Mike Florio. What a baby he is. And then Chris Sims, all he could do was brag about how much pot he smokes on Fridays. Nice. Nice job, Phil Sims. Proud of your son there. Of course, the ads are a big part of the Super Bowl. I'm not talking about the halftime show. Not my cup of tea. If you can't figure that out, that's on you. I could care less about Eminem and him kneeling and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. I don't care. The ads I do care about. I went to school for marketing, so I can kind of appreciate the effort in some of these ads. Not many, at least not many in the first half. I did like the Doctor Strange trailer, although that doesn't really count to me as an ad per se. Michelob Ultra, the homage to the Big Lebowski with Steve Buscemi. Of course, Peyton Manning was in it, Jimmy Butler, ELO playing Showdown in the background. Fantastic. Serena Williams at the end showing up. They're teasing us, making us think that Jesus is back from Lebowski. So I like that one. Rocket Holmes, the Barbie Dreamhouse stuff, that was entertaining. Larry David's, of course, everybody loved that one. Jim Carrey is the cable guy. And then Pringles, of course, I'll never understand the appeal of that stupid canister. Obviously, in this ad, even that their company's making fun of it. It's an idiotic packaging idea, and I can't believe it survived over the decades and decades. All right. Other NFL news here as we wrap up again. We're trying to do things very, very quickly. And one other ad, by the way, I was going to save this for the dumbass segment, but I do need to bring this up. That stupid Uber Eats commercial, that could have been the dumbest commercial ever made. Number one, Jennifer Coolidge, who the hell is she? Why do people think she's talented? Why do people think she's actually a celebrity? And then Gwyneth Paltrow trying to eat her vagina-scented candle. Just think about that statement. Gwyneth Paltrow eating her own vagina-scented candle. That tells you how stupid we are right now as a society. All right, NFL's going to play games in Germany through 2025. Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, is extended through 2026. Mr. Lateral Thinker, Aaron Rodgers, he's devoting himself too much to football, so he had to break it off with Shailene Woodley. Oh, it's so bad. What a shame. What a shame. I've heard a lot of people out there making jokes on sports radio about who Aaron Rodgers should be paired with next. Britney Spears. I like Taylor Swift, so she can write a bunch of songs about how terrible of a person he is. The awards, of course, were given out the week before the Super Bowl. We talked about Aaron Rodgers, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp. Defensive Player of the Year was TJ Watt of the Steelers, tying the single-season sack record. Coach of the Year, Mike Vrabel. Don't know if I'm a big fan of that pick, but he did get the Titans the number one AFC seed after losing Derrick Henry for a big chunk of the regular season. So, possibly, maybe, I can see it. You can sell me on that one. One last thing on Aaron Rodgers, of course. Green Bay's trying to pamper him, kiss his butt, so they bring Tom Clements back out of retirement. Old quarterback's coach for the Packers. He'll take over that job again because Aaron Rodgers loves him so much. Ugh. Hall of Famers. Boring class beyond belief. Tony Baselli, Bryant Young, Dick Vermeil, Richard Seymour, Sam Mills, Cliff Branch. This is like a make good year. Guys that really are borderline. We've got a lot of strong candidates coming up here in the next 3 or 4 years. So let's get these guys in now while we can, so they don't get blocked anymore. Speaking of blocking, I just never understood the Tony Baselli admiration or appeal. Of course, Dick Vermeil, I can see him as a coach going in. Actually, a little shocked it took this long. Bryant Young and Richard Seymour, solid but unspectacular. I know the numbers warrant them being in the Hall of Fame. Still boring class of Hall of Famers. Wrapping up here, a couple other little NFL tidbits before we head on to segment 2 in NASCAR. Colts are looking to cut or trade Carson Wentz. They got a couple weeks to do it. If they can cut or trade him before roster bonus deadline hits, he'll only, I think, cost them about $15 million in dead cap money this year. So the Colts, the Broncos, Steelers, those teams are out there. It's going to be fun to see what quarterback ends up where in this crazy coming up free agency frenzy the NFL is going to be dealing with. Finally, Adrian Peterson cannot keep himself out of trouble. Of course, we know he got suspended years back for admitting he used a switch on his child to discipline. Now he was arrested at LAX on felony domestic violence charges on a plane heading to Houston with his wife. Peterson dodged, missed a bullet there as no charges were filed. He's going to make it hard on Hall of Fame voters. He will get in, but boy, this is kind of like Terrell Owens, where I can see the voters cringing when they have to vote for him and put him into Canton. All right, so that's it. Like I said, very quick segments this week, trying to avoid technical glitches till we can get them ironed out and give you hopefully a full episode next week. So stay tuned. Daytona 500 picks coming. Hey kids, ready for a blast of dairy goodness? Pick up Sports Frenzy 2.0 milk at your local grocery store. Remember, when you drink Sports Frenzy 2.0 milk, you're not only enjoying a healthy treat, you're helping to locate missing sports heroes of the past and present. Our cartons and jugs feature pictures of Peng Shui, Ryan Leaf, and Sammy Sosa as we do our part to find the lost icons of the last 30 years. And don't forget our special weekend edition chocolate milk containers, available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, because they feature celebrities like Lindsay Lohan, Helen Hunt, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Pick up a gallon today. Hey everybody, welcome. Segment 2 here, Sports Frenzy 2.0. Massive technical issues this week. We are trying our best to get something out to you. Yes, we're late. It's Friday, the 18th of February. Normally you get this at least a day earlier, if not a day and a half. NASCAR starts up this coming weekend with the Daytona 500. We've had qualifying. We have had the duels. Of course, Hendricks Motorsports are an incredible run when it comes to Daytona qualifying. They have the front row with Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman, 1 and 2. The duels last night were won by Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. Of course, Daytona, Talladega, super speedways, it really doesn't matter all that much where you start. So I think Joey Logano's got to go to the back with a backup car. He had an incident in one of the duels last night. That could be an issue, but really, is it that bad? A lot of guys prefer to hang in the back to stay away from the big one, which you know is inevitably going to come. Of course, they have incentivized trying to run well in the duels and qualify by giving points. So anybody who finishes in the top 10 in either Duel 1 or Duel 2 does get points that carry over into the regular season standings. But again, Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman, Hendricks dominates qualifying in that respect. They will be your front row this coming Sunday. The 500 is sold out. Great news. Maybe we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this pandemic, when it comes to sports attendance. Couple notables who ended up making it into the field. One by running well enough in qualifying, and one by finishing high up enough in one of the duels. Guys who did not have a charter were not guaranteed spots. Greg Biffle, of course, has not raced in the Cup Series in many, many years. He did well enough in the duels to make it for the Daytona 500 for New York Racing, NY Racing. Then Jacques Villeneuve, IndyCar legend. This isn't his first run, but I believe he's only been in 3 or 4 overall over his career in terms of cup racing. So we'll see. Interesting to have a couple big names like that helping to fill out the field of 40. One last note here, the drivers have started an advisory council. Jeff Burton will be the director. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of good input from them on how to keep the sport viable, bring in new fans, and have another voice outside of the track owners and the team owners. All right, as I mentioned, we're trying to push through as best we can here this week with all the glitches and everything. So this segment will probably be shorter than what you're accustomed to. Last thing here in NASCAR is we are going to give you our Daytona 500 picks. The race is coming up this Sunday, the 20th. Now, my strategy is, since we in our Sports Frenzy contest, you can only pick a driver 3 times maximum in the first 26 races, and then you get them back one more time if you so choose in the last 10 once we get to the playoffs. I don't like to burn high-profile drivers on super speedways because more often than not, they get caught up in accidents. So I look back over the last couple years to see who I was picking for Talladega, for Daytona. I like Dave's pick, Austin Dillon, although he didn't run all that well in qualifying and in the duels. But Austin Dillon has a decent history at super speedways. I'm going with Ryan Blaney, so is Aaron. It might seem like I'm being a bit of a hypocrite when I say that I don't like burning a big name at a super speedway, but I look back at how I've picked and who I've picked over the first 26 races and who I've maxed out on, who I'm saving for certain types of tracks. And Ryan Blaney, I've never really maxed out on. I've never, even though he's got, I believe, 7 cup wins overall, and he's been getting better and better each and every year. He's usually a lock to make the playoffs. But I just never have gotten a feel for where Ryan Blaney is really better than everybody else. So I usually don't max out on him over the course of the first 26 races. So I figured he's been running extremely well at super speedways over the last few years. Why not? So like I said, Aaron's going with me, and it panned out so far. Those bonus points I was talking about, I got 8 of those out of Blaney for him finishing 3rd in the first duel. Of course, the popular pick for Sam, Bill, and Nick is Denny Hamlin. Hamlin is right now the king of the super speedways. I understand why they're going with Denny Hamlin, but he's one that I was not going to touch because I can find 3 other races throughout the course of the first 26 where I will use Denny Hamlin. And then finally, Jen and Doug go with the defending champion, Kyle Larson. And again, he's on the pole. So far, so good. They did get some bonus points out of him. He finished in the top 10 in his duel race last night. So not a bad pick on the surface, but again, Kyle Larson, I can find better places to use him, safer places to use him outside of the mess that is a super speedway race. All right, like I mentioned, I'm going to run through some things real quick here, try to get us through to a third segment. The NBA, of course, is now on its all-star break. This past week, LeBron James, of course, you guys all know how much I love LeBron James. Note sarcasm, wink, wink. Combined regular season and playoffs, he is now the number 1 all-time scorer in NBA history. Now, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar still holds the mark for regular season only. So we'll see if LeBron gets there. By all accounts, probably should be able to get there within the next year to 2 years. His teammate Anthony Davis, hurt again. Charles Barkley, of course, loves to call him street clothes because most of the time you see Anthony Davis, he is on the bench in street clothes. And now again, he is hurt. He's got an ankle sprain that will keep him out at least for the next 4 weeks. Poor, poor Lakers. Poor, poor, pitiful Lakers. I feel so bad for them. Glad to see the Suns and the Warriors dominating the West. Hopefully, the Lakers will have a quick exit. Wouldn't it be humiliating for LeBron if he has to go through that playoff scenario, the play-in playoff, where you get the 4 teams at the bottom who have to play in, and 2 of them actually make it into the playoffs proper? And of course, the one big trade we did not cover last week on the show is James Harden again whines and cries and moans and complains in a passive-aggressive way, kind of like Aaron Rodgers. So he gets out of Brooklyn. It seems like he was just traded to Brooklyn from the Rockets. So now he's going to the 76ers to play with Joel Embiid. The Nets get troubled Ben Simmons, who refused to play for the Sixers, and Doc Rivers. Now, I'm not the biggest NBA fan in the world, but I'll tell you this. I used to be an Orlando Magic fanatic. I'm still a fan. I don't follow them nearly as much as I used to when I lived near Orlando. But I do know a little bit about Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is not a great guy. Doc Rivers is a jackass. That's why he keeps going from port to port to port, team to team to team, with moderate, mild success. And he alienated Ben Simmons. So guess what, Doc? You get what you deserve. Now you got to deal with James Harden. Of course, a big reason supposedly James Harden wanted to go from Brooklyn to the 76ers. Number one, supposedly he did not like playing with Kyrie Irving. There's a shocker. Who would? But of course, he wanted to get back with his old GM, Daryl Morey, who's now running the 76ers, because Morey just pampers James Harden like nobody's business. Harden doesn't have to fly on the same plane as the other team members if Morey's in charge. Gets to party all hours of the night, do whatever he wants, pampered, treated like a king. Again, Philadelphia, you get what you deserve. I do like Joel Embiid. I don't want to wish anything bad on him, but I'd prefer to see the Bulls or the Bucks or even the Miami Heat get to the finals, where, of course, you know they're going to lose to whoever comes out of the West. But still, I want to see both Brooklyn and Philadelphia fail because of Kyrie Irving and because of James Harden and the mess those two have made of those two teams. I have to admit, though, it would be kind of cool to see Ben Simmons actually step up and play well for Brooklyn. I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. Finally, NCAA hoops. Just want to mention real quick, Gonzaga is now back on top, number 1 in the AP poll. Teams that we follow on the college level Notre Dame, Miami, both 19-7 as we tape this. Notre Dame a little bit better in the ACC, so they are tied for first with Duke. Miami slipped a little bit. They're down to third in the ACC at 11-4. Still looks good that both Notre Dame and Miami will make the big dance. All right, so as I mentioned, we're trying something different here to avoid technical issues. So we're going to cut segment 2 off early here. We'll come back with some college football news, some miscellaneous notes, and a couple dumbasses of the week. Stay tuned. She walked into my office just as I was reaching for the bottle in my bottom desk drawer. Legs till Tuesday, lips like pillows. I want to hire you, she said, to find Sports Frenzy 2.0. Doll, I said, that would be the easiest case ever. Sports Frenzy 2.0 is on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Apple, everywhere you listen to podcasts. She nodded to herself, sat down and smiled. I grabbed 2 glasses. Life was good. And so is Sports Frenzy 2.0. Hey everybody, segment 3 here, Sports Frenzy 2.0, late. February the 18th, 2022. Blame it on the weather, blame it on technical issues, blame it on the rain, as Milli Vanilli once said. And I can't believe I referenced Milli fucking Vanilli. All right, I've got to blow through some other sports headlines here as we try to wrap up. College football news, coaching news. 3 big-time head coaches who had phenomenal seasons 2021 into 2022. Cincinnati's Luke Fickell has been extended through 2028. Baylor's Dave Aranda extended through 2029. And it looks like the bizarre, crazy strategy of Jim Harbaugh ended up working as he gets a 5-year extension with Michigan, which will carry through 2026. He took a pay cut, as you remember. Well, now he's back up over $7 million a year. I find it amazing. He lost both his offensive, defensive coordinator. He wasn't there for signing day as he was talking to the Minnesota Vikings, yet somehow this all worked out for him in the end. News that ties in Dave's favorite team, Notre Dame, with my favorite team, the Miami Hurricanes. ND has hired Al Golden, former Hurricanes head coach. He was just on the Bengals staff. He was an assistant coach there. He's been hired as the Fighting Irish new defensive coordinator. So I'm kind of torn there. I did always like Al Golden, even though he really didn't have a lot of success as the Canes head coach, but I did like him. He was professional, loved how he always dressed. The opposite of somebody like Bill Belichick. You know, always had the green or the orange tie, always looked professional, always held himself very well. It just didn't translate into success for the Hurricanes. Of course, the Olympics are wrapping up. The big story has been 15-year-old Kamila Valieva of Russia found to have had a banned substance in her system. Of course, it goes all the way back. This is what's so bizarre and why people think the Olympic Committee, the IOC, is corrupt. She was supposedly tested on Christmas of 2021, and the results weren't returned until 6.5 weeks later. And there was some kind of bizarre story out there about how it was her grandfather's medicine. Um, but anyway, because she was under the age of 16, she is considered a quote unquote protected person. So she won her appeal, was able to perform here over the last day or so. Um, Now, of course, there were people saying if she made it into the final medals, gold, bronze, silver, obviously, there would be no medal ceremony, kind of as a protest, really strong, harsh protest there. Well, she bailed them out. She did not finish in the top three. She finished fourth. And now they're chastising her teammates for being cold to her for her unsuccessful performance. This is why these Olympics are going down as an abject failure. Of course, for the U.S., they're not doing all that great in terms of the medal count. Uh, the men's hockey team loses to Slovakia, which in and of itself, you think the whole thing with Kamila Valieva is embarrassing. For the U.S. hockey, that's embarrassing, losing to Slovakia. Now, the women, at least, I know they had hopes for gold, but the women's hockey team at least got a silver as they lost to Canada. Speaking of women's athletics, the Yukon women last week lost to Villanova, snapping an unbelievable 145 game regular season conference winning streak, dating all the way back to 2013. Tennis news. We all know about the mess at the Australian Open with Novak Djokovic. Now Rafael Nadal is the overall all-time leader for the men when it comes to singles Grand Slam titles. Well, now Novak Djokovic is putting himself in a deeper, darker hole. He will not play at Wimbledon or the French Open if vaccinations are mandated. And you can pretty much usually pencil in Nadal, even if Djokovic was playing on the clay at Roland Garros. Nadal is always the favorite. So this is all working out in Rafael Nadal's favor. Roger Federer has not officially retired yet, but it's got to be coming soon. Unfortunately, I think he's going to end up finishing third among these three when it comes to men's Grand Slam titles all time. Couple notes on golf real quick. Last weekend was the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and by all accounts, it was a freaking party. On the 16th hole, somebody got a hole in one, and they just started showering the course with beer. Now, of course, everybody who knows me knows, being in my mid-50s, I am kind of one of those get off my lawn type of guys. I am old school. And I'm over the whole let's just let it all hang out when it comes to golf. Let's throw beer. Let's scream Baba Booey. Let's scream you the man. You let Tiger Woods curse and swear left and right. I do think golf should be more of a game of decorum like it used to be. I'm not saying it can't be fun. I loved the feud between Koepka and DeChambeau last year. Now, of course, Phil Mickelson's coming out and he's causing problems because the Saudi Golf League that's starting up, backed, of course, with huge oil money. Rumors are that Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau are being courted with unbelievable amounts of money to leave the PGA Tour and go to this, as they want to call it, SGL, Saudi Golf League. And Mickelson's out there doing interviews saying, on the one hand, they're very, I'm paraphrasing, but not too far off from what Phil said. They're very evil, nasty people to deal with, but he's trying to use this as leverage to get changes in how the PGA runs their tour. And it's just, look it up, Google it, you read it, you tell me, is Phil Mickelson right or wrong in his assessment of why he thinks the Saudi Golf League is going to end up being good? Is he right to use it as leverage? Are his complaints about the PGA justified? And then one last thing on golf, Oakland Hills Country Club, the clubhouse here, a few hours away near Detroit, burned down within the last day or two. Of course, Oakland Hills hosted 9 majors back in the day. Really hasn't been up there in terms of majors within the last decade or two. I think it hosted a Ryder Cup about 18 years ago, but it had been awarded way off in the future, but it had been awarded, I believe, 2 women's U.S. Opens, and they had just undergone huge renovations recently, millions and millions of dollars, to try to lure the PGA to give them a major once again. And of course, there was a lot of golf memorabilia in that clubhouse. So kind of a sad day for golf. Extensive damage to Oakland Hills Country Club outside of Detroit. Moment of silence here. Jeremy Giambi, former Major League player, tied to steroids, unfortunately committed suicide at 47 years old. Brother of the more well-known Jason Giambi. Then finally, a couple dumbasses real quick to wrap things up here on an abbreviated Sports Frenzy 2.0. Juan Soto. Of course, the craziness of baseball right now where they can't figure out anything, and they are going to lose fans. This is going to permanently damage the game if they can't get their shit figured out and get on the field in time. Juan Soto, of course, great young star for the Nationals. This is the problem, though. This is the disconnect between the fans and the players. Reportedly, Juan Soto turned down a 13-year, $350 million offer from the Nationals, thinking that he can get more in a couple years on the open market. That's a dangerous game to play right now, I'm telling you. And I think it makes him a dumbass. Because, like I said, if attendance falls, if TV contract money dries up, you might not get this kind of offer ever again. Ask Chris Bryant. I'll be interested to see what he gets once this lockout ends. A couple years ago, the Cubs offered him, I believe, $200 million, and he turned it down. Of course, his agent, the guy who's helping to destroy baseball, Scott Boras, was behind that. But again, you can never connect with your fans when you see things like this happening where somebody turns down $350 million. Juan Soto's a dumbass. Of course, we talked about Michelle Tafoya in the first segment, retiring from broadcasting to get into politics. And of course, the idiot who used to be at CNN or used to be at ESPN, now going to CNN, Jamel Hill, racist. She's a nasty, vile racist. She's full of hatred. I don't know what happened to her. Yes, she is an African American, and yes, she can be a racist, and she is. She's attacking Michelle Tafoya because of critical race theory, which, of course, Jamel Hill thinks is made up, which is garbage. Everybody knows critical race theory is not made up. It is something that is happening and is being taught in schools, especially in liberal states. Why don't you let Michelle Tafoya be retired for 5 minutes before you start attacking her on her political beliefs? And then finally, I don't know if this guy's a dumbass or not. This Mattress Mack, Jim McIngvale, runs a furniture store chain in Texas, I believe. Bet $9.5 million straight up on the Bengals to win. Biggest bet, I guess, all time. I think he did 4.5 million and then tacked on 5 million. Now the thing is, if the point spread had been involved, this would have actually been a decent pick because he would have won. At the time, I believe the point spread was 4. He would have got 4 points. Rams won by 3, but he did straight up. No points involved. Bengals over the Rams. So he loses $9.5 million. Now here's the part where I don't know if he's necessarily a dumbass or not. Part of the whole thing with the betting was that he was running a promotion where if people spent X amount of money, a lot of money, I believe $3,000 minimum, on furniture at one of his stores, and the Bengals won, he was going to reimburse all those furniture purchases of $3,000 or more. So that's clever. Because, of course, he bumps up his sales. People fall prey to this. They're suckers. So if he wins the bet, he wins enough money to cover the reimbursements. Now he loses. He doesn't have to pay those people back, and his sales increased. So by some accounts, his promotion brought in $20 million in revenue. Now that's revenue. Not sure about how it all washes out after costs and everything, advertising, overhead, but still another guy, just like Juan Soto, flaunting how much money he's got to play with. Even if it turns out that it was kind of an interesting and smart business move, with either way his bet would have fallen, it's still, again, rubbing it in the faces, rubbing it in the noses of regular middle class, lower middle class Americans for somebody to just screw around with $9.5 million like that. All right, that's it again. Abbreviated Sports Frenzy 2.0 this week. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm the Maestro. Hopefully, technical issues will be sorted out next week. The Conquistador will be back with me. Check out the weekend edition if we can get it uploaded tomorrow morning, February the 19th. Reviews of Nightmare Alley and Slash with Miles Kennedy. Again, been a rough week, kids. Thanks for hanging with me. We'll check you out later. Bye.